Edward Brown, host of The Best of Investing, here to remind you to tune in this week on Saturday at 8 p.m. Our guest is going to be Matt Spagnola. You're not going to want to miss that show. That's The Best of Investing on Welcome. You're listening to The Best of Investing. I'm your host, Edward Brown. Our phone number is 888-912-1190. Use that number to answer the trivia questions for a 5-pack tanning certificate given away during the show. That certificate's not sponsored by the radio station, but by Tan Bella Tanning Salon with 2 locations in San Francisco and 1 in Marin. Those certificates are worth about $100, so it's a nice little prize we're giving away. Today's trivia theme, miscellaneous trivia. Do want to make a mention here also for Pacific Private Money's new fund called Arrival. I just became an investor last month myself. It's a limited time only because once they hit a certain amount of raise, they are going to put the brakes on it. Best part about it is it's paying 10%. They're backed by first deeds of trust that are being originated, and then they're sold within 2 weeks to a buyer. So it's just like putting it on a little conveyor belt, and it's extremely conservative because the borrowers haven't even had a chance to default on a loan, and that's right out of our portfolio. So we're just almost like wholesaling them in a way. Check out pacificprivatemoney.com for more information. Let them know you heard about it on the Best of Investing radio show. Today we do have a special guest, RJ Burr from Panics and LLC, and I'm going to read a little bio here. The title of this show is this episode is Investing in American Oil Production. RJ is a third-generation producer of American oil. Within 3 months of graduating high school, Mr. Burr founded his first partnership and never looked back. RJ is the CEO and president of Panics. With a main focus on the Gulf Coast, Mr. Burr's companies have raised and developed over $300 million in upstream development and have partnered with some of the largest oil and gas companies, such as Shell, BP, and Marathon Oil, to develop several million barrels in reserves. Hey, RJ, welcome to the Best of Investing.
Edward, it's a pleasure being here.
Yeah. Well, I find it very interesting that we're having a show mostly about oil because now that we're going to be getting back to the Trump presidency, and he said, drill, baby, drill, starting, that's what, like the first thing he wants to do, January 20th. How is that going to affect what you're doing?
It really doesn't affect me much. I mean, you have there's certain segments that are scared about oil prices dropping, and and they're well, if prices drop, you're going to make as much money. Well, President Trump's not the normal president in the sense that he understands something that for some reason politicians just have a hard time wrapping their hands around, and it's the fact that oil prices have to be at a certain level, otherwise the oil companies aren't going to go get it. It's too risky a business for me to go out and lose money. And however, he also knows it can't be too high and kill the consumer. And
no,
so
I totally agree, because you have a situation where, the employees who are working have to get paid a certain amount. And if oil is, $10 a barrel, these people, it doesn't make sense for anybody to produce oil. So I totally get it. What range do you guesstimate the oil would need to be between?
during his first term, everybody was happy when it was 60 to 80. I mean, it doesn't kill the consumer too much. It doesn't kill the oil company's profits, and so we can live 60 to 80.
Gotcha. Okay, good. Let's see here. Believe it or not, we're going to go to a break here in just a minute. When we come back, we do want to talk about certain questions like why are we addicted to oil? Who are the true domestic oil producers? Talk a little bit about your company, specifically Panics, and what you're offering to people. All right, here's our first trivia question here. Which metal is liquid at room temperature? And just a reminder, RJ, if you know the answer, don't say anything yet. Call 888-912-1190. First caller with correct answer wins that tanning certificate, which again is worth about $100. The trivia question is, which metal is liquid at room temperature? And do want to make a mention here also for Transcendence Theater, the Broadway holiday show Let's see here. We got, I think, just a couple of days left, December 18th and 19th. Check them out at bestnightever.org. They always do a phenomenal show, and specifically around the holidays, it's a great Christmas theme to take your family to. Bestnightever.org. All right, stay with us. You are listening to The Best of Investing with Edward Brown and my special guest, R.J. Burr. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my special guest, R.J. Burr. Our first trivia question is, which metal is liquid at room temperature? R.J., do you know the answer to that?
And no, I really don't.
Okay.
I was actually
Mercury.
thinking of it. I was trying to think, but no, I have no idea.
Yeah, mercury. Think about it like,
That was my
temperature.
first guess.
I knew you were thinking about it. All right.
Well, I hate being wrong.
Well, it's okay. You got a couple more chances to answer trivia. The second one's kind of hard. Third one's probably a little easier. All right. So RJ is the CEO and president of Panex LLC. Panex. How did you get that name?
Well, it's a family-run business, and my dad graduated high school from Maryville, Louisiana, and his high school was the Maryville Panthers, and so it was originally named Panther Exploration. And when you're doing emails and when you're doing all that stuff, it was just laborious
Yeah.
typing Panther Exploration. So we shortened it down to Panex, and it
Okay.
just kind of stuck.
Okay, so let's get into these questions. We were talking to the audience. We said we get back, came back. We'd ask these questions. So why are we addicted to oil?
Well, honestly, if you were to ask me the greatest failure of our education system, it would be educating people on a product that is so important to us. The modern world didn't begin until 1859. That was when we drilled the first well in the United States, and it amazes me that a product that has done so much for humanity. I mean, it has had more impact on humanity than anything else we've used.
Yeah,
And for it to be basically under attack from day one just baffles the mind. Because when you look at it, it's in nearly every aspect of our life,
yeah,
from computers to cosmetics to makeup to
plastic,
asphalt to plastics to everything. And
everything.
so it's just something that a couple of years ago, I made a movie called A Morning Without Oil. And I was up here. It was actually probably 3 years ago this time of year. I was up here early one morning right before Christmas, and it was probably about 6:30 in the morning. Nobody got in the office, and I'm making a cup of coffee, and I'm sitting back in the kitchen. And I've been in this business 30 years, and I haven't done this up to this point. And
Yeah,
I'm sitting here and I'm looking around the kitchen, and it just kind of hit me. Well, that was made with oil.
yeah,
That was made with oil. And I started going around and just kind of naming everything in that little kitchen that was made with oil. And by the time I got back to my office, it hit me as well, dang, Jay, you've been doing this your whole life.
yeah.
If that surprised you, how many other people have no idea? And so we went on a little mission. We made it's kind of a little funny movie, but we made a movie representing what somebody would do, what a husband and wife would do if there was no oil in their life, just from the time they get out of bed till they leave the house to go to work. And we wouldn't live in the modern world.
No, it's really interesting. I remember even seeing. I think there was a congressional hearing, and one of the congressmen, he said, what kind of shoes you wearing, and such as or your purse or something, and plastics, because that's made with oil. And I mean, it was basically promoting oil, and yeah, it got such a bad rap. And it's so funny too because you think about even these electric cars. How do you get the electricity? Don't
Oh,
you need oil for that or nuclear? You know?
that's really it's a false argument. I mean,
Yeah,
and you don't want to. And I come from the standpoint, I believe everybody has a little environmentalist in them. No,
of
nobody
course.
wants to live in trash. Nobody wants to destroy the earth. And so, to pit the argument that if I don't believe what you want to do, then I want us all to die. That's just kind of a false dichotomy they've set up.
Right. Yeah, like
And
I'm
what?
a conservationist, not an. I look at myself as a conservationist, not an environmentalist. So, I mean, I
Well,
even paper clips. I just don't like waste. You know?
you look at most of the improvements when it's come environmentally to us burning energy. You know where it comes from? The oil energy, the oil industry. Us learning how to burn our products cleaner.
Yeah,
Now, when it comes to making changes, there's really there's not, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. There's nothing on the horizon that can replace oil.
Yeah.
It's just not there.
I agree, 'cause even when
They discovered the first solar
yeah,
panel 150 years ago. If they
yeah,
hadn't figured it out by now, they're not going to. I mean,
yeah,
same thing with hydro, same thing with, and so when you're trying to propose an inadequate product to replace what you already have,
yeah,
you're destined to failure. Now, here's the real turd in the punch bowl, so to speak. When you bring up nuclear, when you
yeah,
bring up natural gas,
yeah,
it's not even a viable option. And it's like, hang on. Natural gas is the cleanest, hottest burning product we have.
yeah,
The infrastructure is pretty much already in place.
yeah.
You could put converters on every car and run them on natural gas. You could pipeline it straight to your garage where you don't have to go to the gas station anymore.
Oh,
What is that too inconvenient? We can't do that, and so, but it's not even an option. Or
oh,
you
well,
look at nuclear. We
yeah,
can run the most advanced subs on the planet on nuclear plant power, yet we can't
yeah,
do it here. It's so when you propose solutions that actually do what they want to do and they're not viable, then you
yeah,
have to wonder what's your motive,
exactly.
because you're not a
Yeah,
serious person. If because for us to do what the environmentalists want to do, we would first have to destroy the earth. We would have to
yeah.
pillage it for raw material like we never have
Like
before.
cobalt and all that for the batteries,
Well,
etc.
you
Yeah,
mentioned lithium battery. Do
yeah.
you realize for one lithium battery that you run a car on, you have to move 500,000 pounds of raw material?
Oh, yeah, and then all the
Eh,
slave labor that does it
Yeah,
too.
and so it's just it's a false argument. And when the fact of the matter is, I mean, and here's what really blew me away. If you go to the scientific community
Yeah,
and you ask them, how does a civilization measure their technological advancement? The definition is how much a society can harness energy and utilize it.
totally
Yet,
makes sense. Tell you what, we're going to go to our next commercial break. When we come back, we're going to continue on to that. All right. Second trivia question is: who was the first sitting president to throw the first pitch on opening day? Now, I'll tell you, it wasn't George Washington because they didn't have baseball back then. All right. Call 888-912-1190. This is kind of a hard one, too. 888-912-1190 to answer this question. Who was the first sitting president to throw out the first pitch on opening day? Stay with us. You're listening to The Best of Investing. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, along with my special guest, R.J. Burr. Second trivia question. Who was the first sitting president to throw the first pitch on opening day?
Teddy.
Oh, you know what? Oh, you're close. Right after him, Taft.
Oh,
Howard
okay,
Taft.
okay.
Not bad, not bad. So we were talking about the evils of oil and all that, and it's funny. And you don't know this. Other people who have listened to the show have heard me say this at least a few different times. So I'll say it so that you can hear. So I remember one time having I don't know how we got this environmentalist guy on the show, and I asked him because I knew the answer to this one. I said, "Let me ask you something. All this evil, progress and global warming and all climate change, climate cold, climate hot, whatever, right? And it's all like oh, it's too much man-made stuff, right?" And I said, well, let me ask you something. According to all scientists, and you'll probably agree with this, we've had at least 5 different ice ages throughout the last, call it 10,000 years. Would you agree? And he said, yes. I said, okay, well, let me ask you something. Thousands of years ago, before we destroyed the earth with all the oil and all that kind of stuff, why did the ice melt? I mean, it wasn't global warming by man-made. It was natural. I mean, we're going through space at how many hundreds of thousands of miles an hour,
Well,
and
it's solar cycles.
yeah. Well, yeah, sometimes it gets hot and sometimes it gets cold. In fact, I just read in the paper that they're thinking about this might be one of the coldest winters around. Yeah,
Well, my daughter, and she's in sixth grade, and it's that delicate dance at school. You don't want to be that belligerent kid that always is combative, and then the
true.
teacher's gonna, well, that just makes your year miserable. And so I just said, look, guys, just kind of roll with the punches. I said, unless it's something obvious. I said, and we were talking about global warming, and I said, okay. I said, if you just want to global warming and the teacher, I said, just pause it and say, okay, answer me this. if humans
Yeah.
are causing the temperature to rise on Earth, why is the temperature on Mars rising? And if they can explain how humans are causing that too, okay, we can accept it. But chances are they can't,
Or they'll say,
because
"Well,
it's all solar
you
cycles.
emitting all of this stuff, and it's eventually hitting Mars." And I hadn't heard that, but I guess are we, quote, humans able to at least measure the fact that it is getting warmer on Mars?
Oh, it was an article I read, and so yeah, and
Oh,
I'm
okay,
not
okay.
saying that it was just one that. Yeah,
But
it's just it's. I've always been of the mind that don't just say because I said so.
yeah,
Because I said so doesn't work. Show me,
yeah,
show me, and once I understand, I'm smart enough and I'm confident enough in my own self esteem that if
okay,
I'm wrong, I can admit that I'm wrong, and I will change my mind.
exactly. I
However,
totally,
you've got to prove to me that I'm wrong.
yeah,
Don't just say because I said so.
yeah.
Well, if
You
one
are
plus one
very
is equaling three, explain to me how you got that calculation, because it hasn't worked anywhere else in human history. One and one is always equal two. And
exactly.
so you
Okay.
just
Well,
I
let's
don't
go on
know.
to your. I do want to go on because we have a bunch of questions that we have for you
Okay.
here. So, who are the true domestic oil producers?
Well, I'll do it this way. Let me ask you: name one American oil company.
Uh, Texaco.
There we go. See, most people, when you ask them to name an oil company, they're going to go straight to the majors. When the fact of the matter is,
To go straight to
I'm
what?
sorry,
To go
straight to the
straight
majors.
the majors. Okay. Yeah.
When in truth, 83% of the oil, 90% of the natural gas produced, and more than 90% of the wells drilled domestically are drilled by roughly 9,000 independent producers who average 12 employees or less.
Really?
That's the
Wow.
American oil industry. And
That's
so
awesome.
when people talk about big bad oil, they're talking about, for the most part, ma and pa companies. Now, don't
Interesting.
get me wrong, there are several large independents
Of
out there.
course.
But the fact of the matter is, the vast majority of our oil are produced by small companies. And so when you look at Panex and you look at what we're doing,
Yeah.
it's happened one time in the last 40 years, and it was when two companies merged. And so I kind of consider that cheating. But there has only been one
Uh,
company.
Marathon Oil and right? Was that Marathon when they merged?
I believe it was,
Or
but
Exxon.
it's the only time you had a company make
Yeah.
it to a major oil and gas, 100 million market cap, based
Oh.
strictly on American oil.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And so when you sit down and look at it, and the reason is you have to have the reserves. If you don't have the bookable reserves, you
Yeah.
can't have the value. And in America, all of your build your company overnight fields have been discovered. And so to get those reserves, you have to either one, have an acquisition opportunity, a window open, or you have to be very fortunate. And thank goodness for us, an acquisition window opened.
I did used to watch the Beverly Hillbillies, so that was one of those fortunate things. Okay, here's our third trivia question. Which is the most consumed vegetable in the US? All right. Call 888-912-1190. First caller with the correct answer wins that tanning certificate. And I do want to make a mention here for Mountain Mike's Pizza in San Rafael. Pizza the way it ought to be. Every time I mention that, I get hungry. Awesome pizza. Mountain Mike's Pizza in San Rafael. All right, stay with us. You're listening to the Best of Investing. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. One more time, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with R.J. Burr. Third trivia question: which is the most consumed vegetable in the U.S.?
I'd say cucumbers because of pickles.
You know what? That's not bad. That's not a bad reasoning for it. It's actually potatoes. And if
Okay.
you think about it,
French
French
fries.
fries,
Okay.
it's the same because you do a lot of things with it. But that's actually pretty good. I like that. Okay, so we're talking to R.J. Burr from Panex about oil, basically. And what do you want to accomplish at Panex?
Oh, we want to build a major. We want to be the first company in 40 years to reach the major oil company's status based on American oil. That's our goal. I'm a true believer that nobody climbed Mount Everest until they decided to.
That's right.
And
So how are you gonna do that?
well, here about 5 years ago, we saw the market crash coming, and anytime you look at American history, anytime there's an economic crisis, there's been one or a group of people that have come out of the other side looking like geniuses. And when you string their stories together, there's really only two common characteristics they share. One, when the crash happened, they were liquid. Two, when the crash happened and their opportunity presented itself, they had the courage to push their chips in the middle of the table and make a move. And so when the crash happened, we kept our powder dry. We had about 10 million cash sitting there. And when the oil market crashed in April of 2020, we started making acquisitions.
What
And
I don't understand is it got to be like, theoretically, it got to be like negative $37 a barrel
yeah,
or something.
oh,
I mean, I
I
don't,
remember the day. It
yeah, and
was
it's like, wait a minute, people are going to pay me to own the stock, basically, or
no,
own the.
it was scary. I mean, it just well, that what it did, and that's where most people don't realize what it did. When I
Yeah,
explain to you who the American oil industry is, the market crash hurt them. Immediately when the market crashed, you had a lot of companies, immediately they were out of business. Oil prices hit negative 40, out of business sign went in their window. Well, the next wave came a couple of months later when we sent everybody home for COVID.
yeah,
The companies that could pay their employees more and get them back to the field, they made it. A lot of the companies that couldn't didn't. And
huh.
so you had a clearing of the playing field like we've never seen before.
So did
And
they?
so
So
we
did
start,
they sell? They sold to other companies then?
oh, or they just
So
went belly up. I mean, it happened
what
a
happened to?
bunch of different ways.
But didn't
It,
they?
it happened.
What happened to the oil that they had? They were in
Well,
the
if
ground.
they had wells producing and they went belly up, then you had a conservatorship come in, or you had they had
Yeah,
there are measures in place to take care of that when it comes. But when
gotcha.
you had all these, a lot of them just sold their behind pipe reserves just to cash
Yeah,
out and get out.
yeah,
And so, about 20 years ago, I came up with a strategy. I was studying the oil industry, and I noticed a lot of the large companies when they saw a capital expenditure coming, when they saw say $1 billion coming their way, what they would do instead of turning to the banks and dealing with the headache of borrowing the money from the banks,
yeah,
they would turn to their equity investors and they'd sell them say $3 billion worth of oil reserves for $1 billion. The investors are happy because they're going to make that profit as the oil's produced. The oil
yeah,
company's happy because they now have their cash and don't have to deal with the banks and can take care of business. And so when I saw that model, I was like, well, hang on. If they can do it, why can't we? The
sure,
only problem is most companies can't get to the point where they have enough reserves to do that.
yeah.
We do. And so
Ah,
we've put a partnership together, a $20 million fund, where
okay,
we are pre-selling the fund 400,000 barrels of oil at $10 a barrel that we will produce over the next 3, 6, 7 years. So the partners will receive it at 400,000 barrels of oil at current market prices will generate the fund anywhere from 18 to roughly 22 million. So we protected their $20 million investment. Well,
hmm,
then we'll take a portion of that money and we'll go make acquisitions. We'll take a portion of that money and they'll get an override in everything we've already acquired. And basically, we put a deal together where I truly believe we have the partner's money protected. And
yeah. Well,
if the good Lord shines on us and we get all we're looking for, I can show them potential 20 to 30 to 1 return on their money. Now,
wow.
if
Well, let
all
me
we
ask you.
do is make them, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say that. So you're putting a fund together, and if I'm not mistaken, if it's a regular, 506D type fund where people get K1s, they'll get intangible drilling costs.
Now that's on this fund there won't be tax benefits because
Oh, there won't.
it's because you're spread over so many wells. Now we do have drilling programs because this time of year is a major time of year for my partners to call me and protect their money in taxes. It's an above line deduction. Now I'm
Yeah, I understand
I'm
that.
not
So
a CPA. I
no,
just give you a general rule of thumb, but it's
no, I get it.
basically for
On your.
every 100,000, it's basically about 35,000 in tax deductions.
Okay, but on this one where it doesn't have the tax benefits,
Mhm.
what are the risks to the investor who, let's say, invests a hundred
Oh,
thousand?
the biggest risk is us. If the market goes south and we go belly up. If
Gotcha.
we don't drill the wells, we can't generate the revenue. And so the individuals that put their money in this, they're betting on me being able to do my job.
Okay. And how long has Panics been around?
Be 9 years in July.
Okay.
Been doing it,
15.
family, but same people, been doing it for 30, 31 years.
Okay.
And like I
But at
said,
least
my first life in oil ended. Marathon Oil bought my family's company out here about 12, 13 years ago. And
okay.
that was when I consider my first life in oil ended. I thought I was going to play on the PGA Tour. Took me about a month to realize that wasn't going to happen. And Took another
Yeah.
couple years to finally go stir crazy, and that was
Yeah.
when we started Panex here 9 years ago. It
So
was
your
time to get
sport
back.
was bowling, which has more money in it. My sport was bowling, and I realized even though I was semi-pro, I couldn't get to that next level. I just realized
Yeah,
I'm good.
no,
I'm not that good.
I
It's
missed
interesting.
my window. I was in my mid 30s at that point, and so if I was going to do that, I needed to start when I was 16, 17 because
Yeah,
I could play,
yeah.
but no, those cats. I mean, they're that good. They're that good.
It's really amazing. Tell you what, we're gonna have to go to our last commercial break here. It's interesting too. You mentioned Marathon Oil because I remember probably when you were just a young man. This was 1980, and it was amazing. There was a big merger. I can't remember who Marathon merged with, but it was like the someone could have. I figured out that somebody could have taken $1,000, and if they would have gotten the very low and sold it at the very high, and then did the next one within a week, they would have made $31 million. But of course,
Wow.
that's all options and all that, and all that. Okay, audience, stay with us. The best of investing will be right back with some closing comments. Don't touch that dial. And our welcome back to the best of investing. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my special guest, RJ Burr from Panex. RJ, if people are interested in your company, your fund, how do they get a hold of you?
All right. Well, we created a website specifically for individuals that's never invested in oil and gas before. It's panex.us/learn, and that page basically gives you a foundation of oil and gas knowledge. Kind of shows you who we are, just paints a broad stroke, gives you an idea, and then we'll reach out to you from there. Or heck, you can email me directly. It's rjburr@panex.us. I answer every email, and I'm the only one who gets them. And I don't like giving people's names out. I don't like inviting competition. So if you give me your name, I'm not going to give it to anybody else. I kind of consider that sacred.
Appreciate that. Okay, you ready? We have we have some thoughts for today, but we have a silly joke of the week. You'll probably like this. So after hearing a sermon about lies and deceit, a man wrote to the IRS and said, "I've been unable to sleep knowing that I cheated on my income tax. I have reviewed my taxable income and have enclosed a check for $900. If I still can't sleep, I'll send in the rest." I like that one. Also, audience, remember to check out Pacific Private Money. They actually have 4 different funds. One of them is the Southwest Fund, where they buy discounted mortgages. Another one is this one I was mentioning earlier today called Arrival Fund. It's their newest fund. The interesting thing there is that they're going to be raising only about 5 or 10 million because they have a partner that's going to partner with them at about 6 to 7 times whatever they raise, and do loans, and then they get flipped over. So it's a very conservative fund because they're paying 10%. You do have to be an accredited investor, which means you have to have a net worth exclusive of your home of $1 million, or you have to make 200,000 a year if you're single, 300,000 if you're married. If any one of those meet your qualifications, give them a call or check them out at pacificprivatemoney.com. Let them know that you heard it on the best of investing. And they also have individual deeds of trust. A lot of people don't like to do a fund, but they like individual deeds of trust. So you might want to check them out and ask them what individual deeds of trust that they have. All right. RJ, we have just a quick minute. Anything you want to cover in the last minute?
No, it's just if we weren't sitting on the oil, I wouldn't be having this conversation with people. But I truly believe that if you're sitting in a position and you're a accredited investor and you're paying taxes, you're making a mistake. You send it to Uncle Sam, that's a true dry hole. Not when you can put it in something where you can protect it through drilling programs and turn that dead revenue into actual revenue that generates you something.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like you said, there oil. I mean, I don't think we're going to have like another COVID situation. So, oil is probably going to stay within a certain
Uh,
range.
I'll leave you with this: 83% of the world is just now beginning to use oil. What do you think they're going to do?
They're not going to give it up.
No.
Yeah, and
Nobody's
then,
gonna voluntarily decide to go back to the Stone Age. They're gonna walk in their home, flip their light switch on for the first time, go, "Oh my God, this is what indoor lighting is." Ah, too
yeah.
bad we're ruining the environment. Let's go back to
And also
candles.
for all the poor developing countries that are going to suddenly, get on the
Exactly.
bandwagon, it's going to save lives. Really, is what it's going to do.
Oh,
Okay, are you?
it's the greatest. It's the greatest gift to humanity is hydrocarbons and what we've been able to do with them.
Yeah. So dead dinosaurs and animals produce oil, and dead plants produce coal. There's a reason for it. Okay, so here's our thoughts for the day. So if you're bald, what color hair do they put on your driver's license? Right? And driver's license says what color your hair is. I don't know. That's
I
interesting.
guess they
Clear,
just put NA.
NA, or clear, maybe.
Yeah.
And
Invisible.
how is it that we can put a man on the moon before we figured out it would be a good idea to put wheels on luggage?
That's the greatest invention of all. I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, God, if they should give him the Nobel Prize.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, audience, tune in next week to The Best of Investing. We're going to be giving away more free prizes for answering trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown, wishing you the best of investing. So long.